The coppery scent of blood and cordite choked the air. Alex crumpled behind a large mahogany desk in the West Wing library, the distant chaos of sirens and shouting a hellish symphony. He pressed his face against the cool, polished wood, trying to quiet his ragged breaths. Heavy, deliberate footsteps echoed on the marble floor outside, growing closer. He knew who it was. Julian, the new president, the man whose life he had meticulously planned to ruin. The man who was supposed to be dead. According to the plan, the defeated strategist would be found and executed without fanfare. A single, clean shot to end the failed coup and cement the new regime. Alex had steeled himself for it. A quiet understanding reached with the handler who had promised a painless extraction. He looked up as the library doors swung open, revealing a figure silhouetted against the flickering emergency lights. Julian stood there, clad in a black tactical vest stained with something dark and wet. The grime of battle only served to sharpen the elegant lines of his face. His eyes deep-set and unreadable. He found it amusing that his mentor was hiding here. It was a simple truth of power that the victor took all. Alex managed a hollow, desperate laugh, pushing himself up from the floor to maintain a shred of dignity as he awaited the inevitable. But instead of a weapon, Julian's hands came for him, lifting him from the floor with startling ease. Alex's feigned composure shattered, and he stared at the younger man, demanding to know what he was doing. Julian didn't stop, his voice a low, intimate murmur near Alex's ear as he carried him through the ravaged corridors. He reminded Alex of the 10 years they had spent together, claiming to remember every lesson, every calculated cruelty, with perfect clarity. Alex's breath caught in his throat. A cold dread, sharp and sudden, seized him as he saw the raw, terrifying emotion swirling in Julian's eyes. It was a look he didn't understand but instinctively feared. Julian's voice was a silken threat, twisting the word gratitude into something sharp and dangerous as he spoke of repaying his teacher's kindness. The handler's voice crackled to life in his hidden earpiece, a frantic, static laced of a critical mission deviation, of anomalous behavior from the target. The message ended with a grim sign-off, wishing him luck before the line went dead. He was thrown onto the presidential bed, the force of the impact knocking the wind out of him. He scrambled to sit up but was pushed back down, Julian's weight a suffocating presence. Julian's hands were on his clothes, tearing at the fabric of his shirt while his voice remained unervingly calm. He remarked that the shirt was dirty, stained with blood, and offered to help him change. The calloused pads of his fingers brushed against the small of Alex's back, sending an involuntary shiver through him. Alex's mask of indifference finally cracked. He tried to kick Julian away, telling him to get off, but his knee was easily blocked and his legs forced apart. Julian's body pressed down, hard and unyielding, a clear and terrifying expression of dominance. When a hand slid lower, a surge of panic propelled Alex to slap him hard across the face, the sound sharp in the tense silence. He spat a single, venomous word, "Animal." In response, Alex watched, mesmerized with horror, as Julian's Adam's apple bobbed in a slow, deliberate swallow. It was a minute gesture, yet it radiated an almost ravenous desire. A cold fear, deeper than any he had felt during the coup, washed over him. He had not angered Julian, he had aroused him. Before another sound could escape his lips, Julian's mouth crashed down on his, silencing his protests and curses in a brutal kiss. His world narrowed to the shocking intimacy, his mind reeling with one frantic, repeating thought. His target, the man whose life he had manipulated for years, was not the person he thought he was at all. He awoke the next day to a body that felt alien, a landscape of aches and pains with a lingering, humiliating soreness in places he refused to acknowledge. The sheets were pooled around his waist, revealing a constellation of dark bruises on his skin. Flushing with a hot, furious shame, he pulled on a robe and stumbled to the door. Two Secret Service agents, impassive as statues, turned in unison, their hands resting near their holsters. Their stance was a silent, insurmountable barrier. Alex's voice was a raw croak when he asked what this meant. They offered no reply. He lunged forward, grabbing one agent by the lapel, repeating his question with more force, demanding to know Julian's intentions. The agent simply stared back, his eyes empty. It was then that Alex understood. It wasn't just the agents. The entire residence was a silent prison. Only he and, each night, Julian were allowed to speak. Julian's visits became a nightly ritual. He still addressed Alex as his mentor, but the dynamic had irrevocably shifted. Alex's barbs and insults were no longer met with stoic silence. Julian would either deftly change the subject or, more often, use the anger as a pretext to drag him back to bed. He seemed to savor Alex's resistance, once whispering against his sweat-dampened forehead that even his insults had a certain charm. The sense of defeat and a growing, gnawing unease became a constant companion. He knew he couldn't let this continue. His handler was gone, and he had to save himself. Escape was impossible. The estate was a fortress. His allies were either dead or imprisoned, his resources seized. The only path out was the one he'd originally planned, to be killed by Julian, completing his mission. He needed to provoke him, truly enrage him. During dinner, he deliberately knocked a bowl of hot soup from Julian's hand. The scalding liquid splashed across the back of his hand, turning the pale skin an angry red. The staff flinched, but Julian waved them away, his pleasant mask never slipping. He merely commented on Alex's apparent foul mood. Alex sneered, telling him that the sight of him was nauseating. In response, Julian leaned in close, his fingers tracing the back of Alex's neck, pressing lightly on a bite mark from the previous night. The sharp sting made Alex inhale sharply. Julian's voice was a soft poison in his ear, suggesting that if his presence was so upsetting, perhaps they should engage in the act until Alex grew accustomed to it. Alex swung at him, but his wrist was caught, and he was once again manhandled towards the bedroom. Later, Julian murmured against his skin that Alex clearly desired him, pointing to his body's involuntary reactions as proof. When Alex squeezed his eyes shut in silent refusal, Julian relentlessly provoked him, demanding a verbal response until Alex finally broke, his voice hoarse as he called him a monster. Only then did Julian seem satisfied, kissing the corner of his reddened eye. He agreed that he was a monster, admitting that he had been ever since the day Alex had orchestrated his family's downfall. A scandal that had seen him stripped of his name and influence, cast out into a political wilderness. Alex froze. He remembered a younger Julian, a boy who had followed him with a dog-like devotion that no amount of cruelty could deter. He had engineered the boy's ruin to advance his own agenda, assuming it would create an unshakable hatred. He had never imagined it would curdle into this twisted, obsessive devotion. This imprisonment, this violation, it was all a form of revenge, designed to make him suffer. Frustrated by his failed attempts to incite a fatal rage, Alex grew desperate. The next morning, as Julian was adjusting his tie before a mirror, Alex seized a heavy, pointed letter opener from the desk. In one swift motion, he pressed the tip against Julian's throat, his voice tight with resolve as he demanded his freedom. The atmosphere in the room instantly solidified. Julian's movements ceased. He looked down at the metal tip, then back at Alex's reflection in the mirror. There was no fear, no anger. A slow, unnerving smile touched his lips as he pointed out that Alex's hand was trembling. Alex pressed harder, drawing a bead of blood, but Julian didn't even flinch. Instead, he leaned into the point, his eyes gleaming with a manic light, and urged him to push harder. He dared him to be as ruthless as he had been all those years ago. The sheer insanity in his gaze, the complete disregard for his own life, made Alex hesitate. In that split second of inaction, a sharp pain exploded in his wrist, and his world went black. When he came to, he was bound to the bed. A moment later, Julian was there, forcing his mouth open for another brutal kiss. A small, bitter pill was pushed past his lips, and he was forced to swallow. He choked and gagged, trying to spit it out, but a firm hand held his jaw shut. He rasped out a question, asking what he had been given. Julian's fingers gently stroked his cheek as he delivered the answer. It was a bonding agent, he explained, something irreversible. A wave of nausea so intense it felt like his stomach was trying to turn itself inside out washed over him. He retched violently over the side of the bed, but nothing came up. Julian's voice was deceptively gentle as he gathered Alex into his arms, explaining that this was a consequence of Alex's own actions. If he had just been compliant, none of this would have been necessary. He pressed Alex's hand to his own flat stomach, his words a chilling promise. With this, a permanent link, a biological tie he would never be able to leave. The coldness of that promise was absolute. He had to escape. The next thing he knew, he was in the back of a moving car. A man in a modern suit sat across from him, his eyes a pale, unnerving gray. It was his handler, physically present. He explained that the situation had gone critical and he had initiated an emergency extraction. He had good news and bad news. The good news, he stated with clinical detachment, was that based on Julian's extreme possessive behavior, the probability of him killing Alex was now less than 2%. He seemed to have developed an aberrant emotional attachment that could be categorized as love, albeit a pathological form. The bad news, the handler continued, was that Julian's psychological profile was an exact match for a target from Alex's previous assignment, the one who had become similarly obsessed before being neutralized in a bloody shootout. Before he could elaborate, the shriek of tires and the pop of gunfire shattered the night. The car swerved violently and crashed to a halt. His handler spoke quickly, explaining that a diversion team was in place and Alex needed to run. The car door was wrenched open, and Julian stood there, framed by the chaos, his face an emotionless mask, his eyes burning like black ice. He asked if Alex was done playing. Just as Alex stumbled out, a volley of gunfire erupted from the woods on both sides. An ambush. Julian reacted instantly, pulling Alex behind him, using his own body as a shield while returning fire with lethal precision. The diversion team was firing indiscriminately. Julian was hit in the shoulder, the dark fabric of his jacket quickly turning blacker with blood. But his grip on Alex's arm never loosened. They were forced back, deeper into the woods, towards the edge of a ravine. Julian's security detail fell one by one until they were alone, cornered at the cliff's edge. Below them, a river churned in the darkness. Their pursuers closed in. Julian turned to him, his voice steady despite the blood loss and exertion. He asked Alex, his given name a shock after years of formality, if he was afraid of heights. Before Alex could process the question, Julian wrapped an arm around his waist like a band of steel and leaped into the abyss. The fall was a dizzying rush of wind and terror. He felt Julian twist in midair, positioning himself underneath, shielding Alex's head and absorbing the brutal impact as they hit the water below. Then, darkness. He woke on a muddy bank, his body a symphony of pain. A short distance away, Julian lay unmoving, his face ashen, his breathing shallow. His handler's final echoed in his mind, a chilling recontextualization of everything. This wasn't a repeated pattern. It was a continuation. He's hunting you. He had followed him somehow from one life to the next. A cold, rational voice in his head told him to kill Julian now, while he was helpless. To end the cycle. He deserved it. He deserved it for the imprisonment, the violation, the monstrous, suffocating love. Alex's hand trembled as he reached for Julian's throat. His fingers brushed against the cold, clammy skin, feeling the faint, stubborn flutter of a pulse. And then he remembered the fall, the unhesitating way Julian had shielded him, the memory of the previous target, rushing towards him through a hail of bullets, his eyes filled not with hate, but with a desperate, shattered love. Why? The question was a raw, silent scream in his mind. Why, after everything he had done, would Julian not only refuse to hate him but also pursue him with such self-destructive fervor? Shaking, he snatched his hand back as if burned. He was trapped. Fleeing into the wilderness was a death sentence. But staying meant returning to that gilded cage. As he wrestled with his impossible choice, a faint, pained whisper escaped Julian's lips. It was his name. After what felt like an eternity, Alex rose slowly. He walked back to the unconscious man, knelt, and tore a strip from his own shirt. With clumsy, shaking hands, he pressed the makeshift bandage against the worst of Julian's wounds. "You win," he whispered to the man who couldn't hear him, his voice raw. Getting Julian back to the capital was a nightmare of exertion and willpower. Just as he felt his own strength give out, his handler's network somehow located them, a covert medical team appearing out of the wilderness. The official story was fabricated. The president and his chief advisor were ambushed on a private retreat, and Alex had heroically saved Julian's life. Julian remained unconscious for weeks. In his absence, Alex discovered the extent of his gamble. Julian had signed executive orders granting Alex acting presidential authority, complete control over the military, the treasury, everything. The seal of office and command codes were left in plain sight on his desk. Julian had left himself no recourse, no safety net. He had given Alex the gun and dared him to pull the trigger. Alex took the reins of power. He ran the country with a detached efficiency that unnerved the cabinet, but stabilized the government. Each night, he would stand by Julian's bedside, watching the younger man fight through fevered dreams, sometimes calling out for his father, sometimes for his mentor. One night, Julian's eyes were open. They were lucid and sharp, and they were fixed on him. An unnerving silence stretched between them. Julian was the first to speak, his voice a dry rasp, asking if Alex had managed. Alex gave a clipped, affirmative reply, cringing the arrangements Julian had left behind. A low chuckle from the bed turned into a series of pained coughs. When he recovered, his gaze was piercing. He asked him, his voice barely audible but carrying immense weight, if he still wanted to leave. Alex was silent for a long time. Finally, he met Julian's gaze, his own expression unreadable. He asked if Julian could give him what his handlers had promised. A way home, a way out of this life. Julian's eyes blazed with a familiar, terrifying intensity. He told Alex that his handlers could only offer an exit, an end. But he, Julian, could offer him everything. The country, the power, his very life. He pushed the presidential seal across the bedside table towards him, his voice dropping to a near whisper, thick with a desperate vulnerability. All Alex had to do was stay. Look at him and only him. Or Julian added, his eyes darkening with a wild, all-or-nothing madness. Alex could use the power he'd been given to end it all. He could kill him right now if he truly believed that was his path to freedom. The heavy seal sat between them, a symbol of ultimate power and ultimate bondage. Alex looked at Julian's outstretched, trembling hand, at the raw, possessive hunger in his eyes. Slowly, he raised his own hand. He didn't take the seal. Instead, he gently closed his fingers around Julian's wrist and pushed his hand, and the seal, back. He met Julian's shocked, wounded gaze, his own voice steady and calm. He told him to focus on getting better. As for leaving, he paused, his gaze shifting to the dark window and the world beyond. His answer was not a promise, but for the first time, it was not a refusal. It depended entirely on Julian's future performance.